Question 44, does God want more friends? This is a video on a playlist called 50 Hot Potato Questions for Christians. Does God want more friends? God is different to normal human beings. A normal human being can only have a conversation with one person at a time. They can have an audience of people and speak to an audience, but they can't speak to 100 people at once. And God is different. He can speak to millions of people at once and have a two-way conversation with millions of people. God can also have millions of friends and millions of people that love him, and he can be interacting and dialoguing with the millions of people. One thing I know about God is that he desires friendship. He desires intimate friendship with himself. God has so much on his mind, and it doesn't take you to be a prophet, to be a friend of God's. I believe a prophet in their very essence is a friend of God, and Abraham was a friend of God's, and King David was a friend of God, and Elijah was a friend of God. So God can have special friends, but he desires everyone to be his friend. You can learn to draw closer to God by doing journals, like I suggested, and you can learn to have two-way conversations with God, and it's through two-way conversations with God that you really grow to get to know him. You really grow in your intimacy. You can reach a stage where you can be asking God questions, and God can be answering your questions one by one. Sometimes we're too afraid to ask God a question. Sometimes there's things in our life that are too emotional for us to ask God a question. I know that I would dearly love a future wife, but I don't ask God questions about that. But sometimes people prophesy and say that I have a wife coming. God has real emotions and distress with what's going on in the world. God isn't always a happy God. He does experience joy, and he does have happiness. But what eternal Father could have so many sons and daughters in distress and remain unaffected by it? So God gets affected by the suffering in the world, the trafficking that's in the world, the slave trafficking, the sex trafficking, the pedophilia, the sexual abuse. There's so many things that distress God and bring his countenance down, and he desires friends that can understand him, friends that he can talk to. You know, sometimes it's good to talk to a friend and get things off your chest just by talking to a friend, and having them listen to you can be very therapeutic to you. You don't need your friend to necessarily have the answers to what you're going through. They don't have to have the solutions for you, but just the act of listening brings you comfort and peace. God needs people on earth, people established on earth with lives and influences, to listen to him. He has a lot to say. So many people pray one-way prayers to God, and they fill God up with their requests, and they repent before God and try and re-establish their relationship after they've sinned with God, and they have a litany of requests for God. But they don't stop and listen. They don't talk to God. They don't have two-way conversations with God. And God gets distressed about that. And he dearly loves people that can have a two-way conversation with him, especially listen to him, especially be there for him to unburden his heart with. And if you desire to be a friend of God's like that, that will do God a lot of good. And I encourage you to work towards being a friend of God. God can certainly do with it. God bless.